Hello everyone and welcome back to my sunroom. It is a very cold day here in East Tennessee and I wanted to share with you what just bloomed. This is the first bloom on my Phal Sogo Lawrence Tahihi sunset. Absolutely perfectly beautiful. I love this plant. I have two of these. I love them so much. So both of them are growing in New Zealand Sphagnum Moss. And if you all will remember, I had this one temporarily in waterculture back during the latter part of the summer and the fall. And I decided to place it in some moss that had been sprouting up in my windowsill for quite a while. I didn't really want to leave this one in waterculture the entire winter because the root system had just gotten started. And I've learned that's not the best time to get a Phalaenopsis through the winter in waterculture when the root system has just started to rebound. So what I did was I placed it in this New Zealand Sphagnum Moss that I sprouted, which is very easy to do. Oh, you can see the root tips there. This one has done just beautifully, beautifully well. And several of you have asked me how to do this. So I thought I'm going to go ahead and talk you through the process. I said in a video the other day with my Thanksgiving cacti that this is really not the time to get things growing in the middle of the winter. But I want to just talk you through it so that in the springtime, you'll know what to do. It's very, very simple. I highly recommend it. This little Phalaenopsis has just taken off in this sprouted moss, and it's very easy to sprout your own moss. So let me show you how I do it. Okay, this is how I grow or sprout my own moss. This is New Zealand Sphagnum Moss, and I'm going to be doing more of this in the springtime. Like I said, I'm going to take you through that process. But what you keep in mind is that only the tips of the moss are going to sprout. Do you see how it's pretty and green up against this glass? You can either place it in a glass vase like this. If you do, just remember it's only going to sprout along the sides of the glass. So if you fill this with moss, the only area that's going to sprout is on the glass. But I got enough sprouting that I got about one pot, the pot that I just showed you with Tahihi Sunset. I got about one pot of moss in this glass vase that was sprouted. Okay, so here's another way. I really like this way. And AC, thank you for sharing this with me. I finally figured out, okay, I want more of a surface for it to sprout because only the tips will sprout. So I took some damp sphagnum moss. I cut it in little pieces, probably about 1/2 inch to 1 inch. I place a little bit of water on the bottom of this container. And I also poke holes with just a sewing needle, poke a bunch of holes in the top of it. And I don't really cover it tightly. It's just kind of loose. You can tell when it needs to be watered again because it gets very lightweight. There's some weight to this container, so I know there's enough moisture in there. But what this is going to do is it's going to create a humid environment. And so the moss will start sprouting. Now this I started about 4 weeks ago. And as you see, it's starting to turn green. Let me open this up for you and you can see it better. It's starting to turn green, but if this were springtime, it would already be sprouted. Like I said, this is really not the time to try to grow moss, but I did get a little bit of sprouting here, and I'll place this in a sunny window, and in a few months I'm going to have this whole thing sprouted. And I need to repot my Cattleya this spring, and I want this sprouted moss to repot my Cattleya in. So that's what this is earmarked for. And of course, moss just benefits orchid roots in so many ways. It is antibacterial, it's antifungal, and I've just found that especially my miniature type orchids just absolutely love growing in New Zealand sphagnum moss. And the other thing is every time I place it in the window, whether I've sprouted it beforehand like this or not, this is just beautiful. But I would come up with something like this in a few years. It's very long lasting, and the properties of growing in the moss are just so beautiful. Moss holds on to moisture very well. I believe that that's the reason why the miniatures like it so much. Those little roots really grow well in it. And also it hangs on to fertilizing very well. You only need to fertilize about twice a month when you grow your orchids in New Zealand sphagnum moss, and that's a plus as well. It really holds on to water and to nutrients. And it's also really important to know not to let your moss dry out completely. With your bark, it's a little bit different with your watering routine, but you don't want to dry this out too much. You don't want to keep it too wet. There is a balance there. You need a container that has a lot of drainage holes in it. Don't overwater it. You can usually tell when you just pick it up if there's enough moisture in it. You can tell with experience. This one has plenty of moisture in it. When I need to water it, it gets really lightweight. And you can tell this plant is very happy in its home. There's no wrinkles in these leaves at all. There's a primary spike right here. There's another secondary spike that's going to bloom again. So I believe I made the right decision. This one is very, very happy and doing extremely well. And I hope you all have enjoyed this video. I have really enjoyed sharing this little plant with you and the success story. That's the main thing, is to find the correct medium for your area wherever you live, and it helps your plants to thrive, and it also makes the hobby so enjoyable. So thank you all again for watching. Thank you for your friendship, for your comments. I appreciate you all so much. You all are such a blessing to me, and I'd love to say the blessing over you and your family. The Lord bless you and keep you. Make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you and your family his shalom peace. You all make it a great day. We'll see you next time.